happening. If we can't win today, we're going to pull a Damon Hill and punt everybody off the track.
TSN's Motoring 96 is brought to you by Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life, and Midas, the way it should be.
The amusement park, what a great place for families. And you know, it's families we'd like to talk about this week. Now, if you're like me, you were the oldest in your family, and you know what they called us? We were the guinea pigs. We were the ones that Mom and Dad used to hopefully become good parents. And then there was the youngest, and us old ones knew that the youngest was always spoiled. But what about the one in the middle? Tough spot to be. No matter where they look, they were always compared. Well, you know, car companies are like families too. Take BMW, for instance. There's the 3 Series and there's the 7 Series, and stuck right in the middle is the 5 Series. You ever wonder if the 5 Series feels left out and is always striving to find its own identity? Well, apparently not. In fact, BMW has gathered the international automotive media here in Vienna, Austria, to tell us that not only is the 5 Series getting lots of love and attention, it's also just received a brand new wardrobe, so to speak.
It was back in the 50s that BMW decided to build a 5-passenger sedan never seen before. Sleek, dynamic, medium-sized with a powerful engine and sporty suspension. The answer? The BMW 1500, which debuted in 1961. This concept soon became the focal point of BMW's model philosophy. Production of the first 5 Series began in 1972, and until the arrival of the 850, the 5 Series was traditionally in the middle of the BMW family.
The 5 Series is an important market segment for us also because it does provide both the mid-size luxury competition entry for BMW, but it's also a progression. Owners become very loyal. They enjoy the BMW characteristics, but as their needs change, we have to change our products, and our products have to evolve. Each child in the family is unique, each child's individual. The 5 Series is certainly an individual also. And as the family grows up, as each member grows up, the 5 Series is growing up, and our consumers look for it to move also. We move with it.
Vienna and a trip up the Blue Danube was the scene for BMW's introduction of the 4th generation 5 Series. Despite having sold over 1.3 million, BMW decided it was time to say farewell.
Well, this car is now 7.5 years old, the previous one, and it was the most successful car we ever had in that range. So now we did all what we could to make sure that we just can have a similar success with our new car. But you know, the competition today is very, very tough, so you have to do an all-new car.
Doing this 5, they had a very tough problem ahead of them. It had to be, on the first hand, just what the 5 was before, and on the other hand, much, much more. So they worked a lot at giving it a sense of personality, stronger sense of performance look, stronger sense of excitement, motion into the car, and at the same time improve the standards of luxury and quality that every BMW should have, and we just want to take up to the next notch.
With that in mind, the new 5 Series is not a radical makeover. The car is slightly longer and wider, and while styling changes have given the car a smoother, sleeker look, BMW has been careful to retain its original character.
Well, at least from design terms, we don't feel we should have to tell anybody anything. Explaining our cars isn't kind of our way. We like to let the cars talk for themselves. But we think the car is dramatic enough when you see it that you understand right away, wow, that is new. Wow, that is the one that I was waiting for. And wow, it was worth the wait.
Canadians will have to wait until the spring for the arrival of the 528, powered by a 6-cylinder 2.8-liter engine with 191 horsepower. Also available will be the 540 with a 4.4-liter V8 and 282 horsepower. BMW says the new 5 Series is the world's first volume production car to feature an all-aluminum suspension, allowing for a weight reduction of 143 pounds.
Usually given conflict between active ride and between a car which is more on the sporty side and comfort, that's usually a conflict and a contradiction, but detailed refinement to make sure that you have a sporty driving characteristic, what BMW customers expect from their car, and on the other hand reach a much higher level of comfort. And I think that's the tremendous advantage of this car, and that's, I think, the strong point.
This week on Test Drive, we take a look at the second generation Saturn. Now, this vehicle enjoys a rather unique place in history, and that is alongside the likes of Harley-Davidson and the Volkswagen Bug, because the Saturn enjoys a near-cult status. The cult status of the Saturn is witnessed by last year's homecoming bash in Tennessee and the Canadian drive-in reunion earlier this year. For the Bug and the Harley, this status took many years to earn. For Saturn, it's been but 5 short years. The powertrain in the SL2 tested here is a slightly modified version of last year's 1.9-litre 16-valve twin cam. The thing that has long fascinated me about the Saturn engine is its appearance. The lost foam form of casting makes the whole lot look as though it's made out of polystyrene. The switch from port fuel injection to sequential fuel injection helps drivability enormously. Rated at 124 horsepower and 122 pounds-feet of torque, the engine offers a lot of pep. The credit here going to the fact that you have access to 114 pounds-feet of torque as low down as 2400 RPM. Combine this with one of the finest 5-speed manual transmissions around, and the SL2 is no slouch. The run from a standstill to 100 kilometers an hour is accomplished in a tad over 8 seconds. The nice part about the transmission is the ratios. First gear gives you wheel spinning power, while fifth, being a true overdrive, gives you relaxed highway cruising and better fuel economy. During the test, I averaged a highly commendable 8.2 litres per 100 kilometers, or 34.5 miles per gallon. One of the things that irked me about the design of the Saturn is they've elected to use this rather expensive capless bulb instead of the traditional bayonet type stop and tail bulb. The result, instead of costing you about $1 plus tax for the stop and tail, this little puppy costs you almost $4. The suspension on the Saturn is fully independent, featuring McPherson struts up front and a tri-link strut design in back. The SL2 sedan also gets sway bars at both ends and slightly sportier settings. The result is a comfortable and compliant ride that sacrifices little in the way of road manners. When pushed, the whole lot hunkers down and delivers a surprisingly confident feel. Helping matters is the vehicle's speed-sensitive power rack and pinion steering. It affords plenty of feedback at speed and yet is nice and light when it comes time to park. All in all, a neat package. The brakes on the SL2 features discs up front and drums in the rear. During the brake test, I required 116 feet to stop from 80 kilometers an hour. Anti-lock brakes are an option. New for 96 is that the traction control system is now available with the manual box. I have only one comment here. ABS should be standard equipment on a car of this stature. If anything must be made optional, then make it the traction control. One of the big improvements they've made on the interior of the Saturn is to place everything very close to the steering wheel. It makes the ergonomics that much better. However, they still haven't addressed my pet peeve from the original test drive. You get a power mirror for the right side, a manual one for the left side. Now, this vehicle's fully loaded. Why not give you a power mirror for both sides? The entire layout is significantly better than before. First, the larger greenhouse and elevated seating position gives the driver a commanding view of the road ahead as well as to the sides and back. Secondly, the center console configuration is excellent. The radio, which offers superior sound quality, is given the place of prominence and features large, easy-to-use controls. Below it are the climate controls, again large and easy to use. Follow on down the console and you'll find the fuses in a highly accessible position. Further back the center console are the power window buttons. The seats are nicely shaped, offering plenty of support. The inclusion of an adjustable lumbar support is welcome and somewhat of a rarity in many new cars. The rear environment offers ample head and legroom and will accommodate 3 adults if necessary. The trunk is large, cut to bumper level, and benefits from the split folding rear seat. On the safety front, gone are those awful motorized belts in favor of dual airbags and conventional seat belts that are height adjustable. Childproof door locks are standard, while sadly anti-lock brakes are optional. Well, that wraps up yet another edition of Test Drive. You know, the folks at Saturn have done a good job in redesigning this vehicle. They've improved it in practically every area, notwithstanding my comments about the left side mirror. What the nice part is, though, they've actually done the redesign without destroying the character of the Saturn. Now that, in today's rather sterile world, is very refreshing.
Well, unfortunately, I've got some bad news for Bill Gardiner from BMW. As we all know, Bill has a real soft spot for pickup trucks. Well, at a news conference here in Austria, BMW was asked, do you have any plans to produce a pickup truck in the future? The answer, no. But the good news for Bill, the new 5 Series comes with a heated steering wheel option, you know, to keep those hands warm in the dead of winter. And I know that's something that Bill would love. Or would he?
I can't believe it, Brad. Any wimp that requires a heated steering wheel should move south for the winter or stay at home. I just can't believe it. Anyhow, what I want to talk about a little bit this week is power brake and power steering systems. Basically, the power brake system is what we want to talk about. On most cars today, you're going to find power brakes and power steering. You'd have to look pretty hard to find a vehicle that doesn't have one or, in most cases, both of those systems. And in some cases, they can be 2 very separate systems, as they are in this vehicle, or in the one we're going to show you in just a minute, they can be closely coupled together. Now in this vehicle here, this 88 GM minivan, we've got a vacuum-operated power brake booster. That's this large black cylindrical canister right here behind the brake master cylinder. You can see how large it is and how much space that occupies. Now this is a pretty effective and low-cost way of providing power brakes to a vehicle, and this has worked very well on many vehicles for many, many years. However, there's a few things that have conspired to reduce the effectiveness of this brake booster in some applications. For one thing, it's big and bulky. It takes up a lot of space. Secondly, it requires engine manifold vacuum. That's no problem with a gasoline engine. In some cases, with emission controls, certain gasoline engines were borderline on manifold vacuum to run this. But if you move to a diesel-powered or diesel engine vehicle, as many light trucks are today, diesel engines by their very nature have no manifold vacuum, so obviously you can't use a vacuum-operated brake booster. Here's the vacuum hose that goes from the engine's intake manifold over here to the brake booster, in effect supplying the power source for this vacuum-operated brake booster. Right here is a check valve that checks manifold vacuum into the brake booster so that if the engine is stalled or shut off, we'd still have several power-assisted applications. I'm going to pull it out. The engine's been off for several minutes, and you'll actually hear the vacuum escape. It's that little bit of reserve vacuum trapped into the brake booster that would give you those 1 or 2 power-assisted applications, even with the engine shut down. Now, in some vehicles, there physically isn't enough space under hood for that large vacuum-operated power brake booster I just showed you on the minivan. Or in the case of this particular van with its diesel engine, we've got an engine that simply does not produce manifold vacuum to drive such a system. So in this diesel van, what we've got is a Hydra boost. And as the name implies, this system uses hydraulic pressure produced by the power steering pump to power the power brake system. So the steering and brakes are very much interconnected on this power brake system. Now in this system here, as with the vacuum-operated power brake booster, there is no periodic maintenance required on these systems. There's also some other key similarities as well. Both of them have safety features incorporated into them such that if the engine stalls or is shut off, you will have 1 or 2 applications of power-assisted braking after the engine is shut off. This one uses a hydraulic accumulator to capture some pressure. The other van uses a check valve to check manifold vacuum into that large canister. But in either case, repeated applications of the brake after the engine is stalled or shut off will render that vehicle without power brakes. However, in both cases, by using extra pedal pressure, you will be able to safely stop that vehicle. But believe me, you're really going to have to apply a lot of pressure. It's not for the faint of heart. In any case, those people with the heated steering wheels might just be in trouble in that case. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 96.
With the shortage of big brothers in Canada, the drive for new members hit the road for a special race in Ontario. The Midas Go-Kart Celebrity Challenge attracted media types to Centennial Park. Included in the group were motoring's own racing gurus, Graeme Fletcher and Bill Gardiner.
Bill, moments away from qualifying. What are your thoughts right now?
Well, I'll tell you, if practice laps are any indication, it's a lot of fun. I'll tell you, we're going to have a good time. Great weather, and we're looking forward to it. Just keep the gas pedal to the floor. Don't even look at the brakes, and try not to scrub any speed off with steering too sharp. That's about it.
The guys that we got to get after real big time are the Midas guys. I want to beat Kerry Mix real bad.
The motoring guys drew Heat 3 in the preliminary round. Heading into the race, Team Midas, featuring Cascar driver Kerry Mix, was favored.
I mean, getting involved with Big Brothers is a real easy one for Midas. So they're a great organization with a great track record. You know, you always want to get involved in your community, and these guys are top notch. They also like to do some things with go-karts and vehicles, and that's right up our alley.
TSM third and 1050 Chum fourth.
Well, third place, not bad. What are your thoughts?
The kart was just a little too slow on the straightaway. We got past easily. I mean, it was quicker in corners because we were taking the right line, but on the straightaways, toast.
Well, we did all right on the driver's change. I was 4th out of 4 in the first, in my segment, but we got into 2nd on the driver change. Graeme sprinted out of there pretty quick, but we did all right, had a lot of fun, and hope everything went well for Big Brothers today.
Total of 250 points, 3 years in a row. Number 1, CFRB.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns winter storage. One important aspect of winter storing any type of machinery, whether it's a sports car, convertible, a lawnmower, chainsaw, motorcycle, etc., whether it's 2 or 4 cycle engine, you need to protect the fuel that's in that vehicle's fuel system. And what you really should be doing is adding fuel stabilizer to that fuel prior to storage and filling the tank in that vehicle. Now, some folks like to completely drain the fuel systems of their vehicles and run them out of fuel. But then you run the risk of condensation easily entering the fuel system and damaging it for next season. By far the best thing to do is completely fill the tank after adding fuel stabilizer to that system. It'll protect the fuel from turning into a varnish-like substance during that period of inactivity. Any vehicle that's stored for a period of more than 3 months should have this precaution taken. That's your Midas tip of the week.
You know, some people drown their sorrows in Austrian beer. I prefer Austrian food. I'll be right back on Kenzie's Corner.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
Do you remember what it was like back in public school when your best friend moved away? You were devastated. Well, I'm here in a beer hall in Vienna, Austria, drowning my sorrows in Mineralwasser mit Kohlensäure over the loss of a dear departed friend. The BMW 5 Series has been discontinued. Now, there was a car that had it all. It was fast, it was roomy, it was comfortable, it looked great, very, very strong car. I really liked it a lot. But like public school friends, sometimes cars have to go away. And like public school friends, they get replaced. And the new car, new 5 Series, of course, has been already launched. Brad's told you already about the car, so I won't go into a lot of detail. Certainly it's much quieter than the old car was, a little more room, very smooth, very comfortable. But it's going to take me a while to get used to it, quite frankly. There are problems with the new car. The steering is a little bit too loose, but then again, most BMW steering is like that, even on my own car. There's some wood trim in the interior that causes a lot of reflections, which I found a bit distracting. And there's a new child booster seat option for the back seat, and when it's folded down, adult men can't sit comfortably back there for anatomical reasons, which I cannot discuss on family television. Still, overall, I have to say I've never met a BMW that I didn't like. Hey, I even buy them with my own money. And I'm pretty sure this new car is going to be a great success. Still, I'd like to raise a toast to friends now departed, and to new friends that we'll get to know better soon. Auf Wiedersehen. I'm Jim Kenzie.
We're closing out this week's program in Vienna, Austria. We're in the old section. If you ever get a chance to visit here, forget the car, because the best mode of transportation is still horse and carriage. Now, the focal point of this area has to be St. Stephen's Cathedral. They tell me it was built over 1,000 years ago. Now, if you're like me, you kind of wonder what it was like back in those days. Well, here's a little bit of trivia for you. We know that the front of this church was used as a market area where linen and bread was sold. How do we know that? Well, back in those days, they didn't have tape measures to guarantee the length of the fabric that you were purchasing, so the vendor had 2 iron bars placed into the front of the church to guarantee the particular size. Now, when it came to bread, it was sold in the round variety. In order to ensure you were getting the right size of bread, you placed it up against the impression on the wall. If it fit, well, what can I say except 1,000 years of customer satisfaction. That's it for now, but we'll see you next week for more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
This team started up at 87 for 50 years anniversary, and after that we have been doing this on and off, you know, a little bit of everything, and this year it started up for full time. I think we are quite experienced driver, all of us, because we have done a lot of rally driving back home in Sweden.
You just get so relaxed and doing this thing that you just think there's no way in the world that you can get hurt, and that things would happen to you to change your mind, let you realize that, yeah, you could die any single day in these things, and that's kind of the sad side of the business, but it's definitely a fact, something you always have to keep in the forefront of your mind.
Mom, Dad, I'm signing away my life.
TSN's Motoring 96 has been brought to you by Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life, and Midas, the way it should be.